Hello and welcome. For early birds here, I've opened the classroom 5 minutes early. We won't get into too many technical things before everybody else gets to join us, but if you want to go ahead and let me know you're on board, that just lets me know that most people can handle. Remember, keep other energy hog programs shut off. So if you were watching a movie or you're trying to do Word documents because they have a tendency to take a lot of bandwidth. If you turn those off and if you verify that you don't have the mute on, that can be helpful. Hey, Jan, glad to have you here. Good to see you. So we'll be moving ahead in just a minute. How are you doing so far? Hey, Jade's here from Quebec with us. Nice to see you. And we have Jennifer here. I think that's who we have. And Kim Cresswell. Excellent. Gloria's on board. So Kim's doing good. All right, thank you. I know that yesterday's assignment, which I will get to all those who have posted and I haven't responded to yet. Yesterday's assignment, if you remember, I said it looks easy, but it's not. And I really appreciate all the work that people are doing to revisit their it's not a blurb. It's not a pitch per se. It is not the meat when the two characters see each other. It's about what is holding this particular character back. This is what character-driven plotting is about, is getting in and really knowing this character as to why they are not accepting love or open to it or ready for it, and why is the fear. So that's where using the if then, and I give kudos to everybody here who reminded their fellow classmates that there's a purpose that if then. The irony is that you can use the if then question with family members too. If you have a teenager and it's like, no, I'm not going to college, or no, I'm not going to do this or not do that. Ask them, if you do it, then what do you expect to happen? And you know what? You'll find out what's blocking them. And that's the whole purpose of the if then. What is blocking this character? So it's instead of just relying on the external situation or trying for a trope, this really is what drives the characters and makes them really more defined. And it's defined for you as the writer, but it is also defined for the reader. And that's why we do the belief system. And once you start thinking about it, you'll start seeing it in the books that you're reading, where they come right out and say, no, I might go out to this coffee break with somebody, but no way am I getting involved with a pretty boy again, or no way am I getting involved with a career-driven woman again, or no way am I going to get involved with this, thus, or the other thing. So that's the whole purpose, is so we understand, the reader understands why certain choices are going to be hard for this character, why taking certain actions. Because once you know what they're afraid of, it is going to be clearer as we move into the opening of the story today, and then quarter of the way into the story, midpoint of the story, black moment of the story, or climax of the story if you're writing a non-romance, why for this particular character doing certain actions are going to be fraught with more challenges. For the parents in the group, you may have noticed this with your children, that one child just doesn't want to do something. It's the type of thing that just makes them panic, that makes them hesitant, that makes them no way, Jose type of response. But it is when the next child doesn't have those same responses. So by knowing what it is they are afraid of, one may be afraid of public speaking. One may be afraid of looking stupid amongst their friends. One may be afraid. That fear is what's holding them back. So that's why we're pushing for it. So we're going to go ahead here and get started. And at the end of today's lecture, there's a couple of examples from your fellow students, so I can show you my thought process of why I can see almost immediately what the speed bump is going to be for a writer. So lovely to have you here, and let's go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to be talking about the opening of your book. And in the opening of your book, it's called The Everyday World. Sometimes it's called The Ordinary World. It's who they are and how they act and how they feel before the story. And if you have a challenge with that, think about how they are a week before the story. Just to get an idea of, okay, how do I show that this person is hesitant to whatever it is they fear? And this is why in movies like Kindergarten Cop, it's like, you know, from the get-go that this law enforcement officer avoids kids and nothing and doesn't want anything to do with them. Now, there's a reason that we do that in the beginning. So again, here's our mountain from yesterday. And what we're going to be talking about today is from that one, where the character is just everyday world, to two, where they take an action a quarter of the way into the story that's going to start changing them. So this is why we need to have an idea of what they were originally and what their reaction to, love or commitment or intimacy is at the beginning of the story. So the function of this everyday world is twofold. It is to give a contrast between the beginning of the story and the end of the story, because in commercial fiction, which romance is, and mysteries and sci-fi and fantasy, all are commercial fiction, at the end of the story, that character will change. They change because of working through and facing whatever issue you've determined. And this is why I'm working through with you to get clear about what your character really fears or associates with love or reaching an external goal. So the second issue is to reveal your character. Watch movies, watch the beginning season of a TV show. Look at how soon you have a sense of who this character is. And why it matters is readers read not for a plot. Readers read for the character facing specific challenges to them. That's what drives us. We got to know what happened and why. So speed bumps that I see in openings are that a writer might spend too much time showing how wonderful the character is. Because let's face it, we oftentimes can fall in love with our characters. Yes, we also want to kill them at times, but we fall in love with our characters. And so we want to say how good looking they are and how interesting, and everybody loves them, and on and on and on. But that is basically telling the reader, well, this character has no room to change if they're that wonderful anyway. Or we find an overly self-focused character. This is the angst character. This is the one, okay, enough about me. What do you think about me? Type of character. The third is the too wounded or angsty character, where they've been abandoned as a child and then sexually abused as a child and then thrown into a concentration camp, and too much that it's like, why am I identifying with this character? The other challenge that happens here at the beginning is that there's too much time on backstory, because if we're a pantser, we need to find out the backstory in those first pages so we can continue. And this is why traditional publishers usually ask for 50 pages or 100 pages, because they know writers can very naturally fall into a bunch of backstory. Well, this happened, and this is why they're like this, and this is who they knew in their past, et cetera, et cetera. So an agent or an editor is going to read your manuscript, and if you're in backstory, they're going to jump to the next chapter and find out, is something happening to this character yet? And if not, they know this. So we don't want to spend too much time on backstory. There is a place for it in the novel, but it's not in the opening. Not giving the reader a reason to care about this character. Now, this is particularly challenging when you have a wounded or damaged or difficult character. I started a story with a character in prison. Now, that's not normally where you think, oh, I can hardly wait to follow this character and what they're going to do. But what I had to do was find a way to give the reader a reason to understand why she was in prison, but also to show that even in prison, she stepped up for the underdogs, the ones that were being bullied. This is how you give the reader a reason to care. Because basically, no novel starts on page 65. And the more you're doing all of the angst and the backstory, et cetera, right up front, you're telling the character or the reader basically, wait, it's going to get better. That's not how we read. The everyday world maximizes that use of comparison in a novel. That the character acted this way here or felt this way here when the story opened, and they were okay with that. But by the end of the story, you know they're going to feel differently, and that's what's going to allow them to accept love or to reach an external goal if you're not writing a romance. So what happens next is the inciting incident. The inciting incident has two functions. It must offer a choice to the character to take an action or not to take an action. This action will happen about a quarter of the way into the story, but it is something that has a small element of risk to it, but not as big as it's going to be later in the story. So this inciting incident offers that, but it also raises a question for the reader. Will they take that action or not? And the function of having a choice versus no choice means that the reader can engage. Um, so someone has arranged a coffee date or a would you meet my cousin's brother? I think you really like him type of situation. They have a choice to do it or a choice not to do it. That's what the inciting incident is supposed to do, is give that choice, and the reader doesn't know at this point, will this character act or will they just stay the way they are? Now, introducing the inciting incident sooner rather than later, and why? We're always told, do it really quickly. Well, the reason for that is that it is this inciting incident that gives the reader a reason to flip the pages to see what is this particular character going to do about that. Because if we've already seen them in the first page or 2 or 3 pages that they don't like to do public speaking, yet they've been asked to do this on the possibility of a job and they want the job, then we get to see this back and forth. Are they not? Be aware that this is the only time in your story that something can randomly happen to your character. Because from the first time that they decide they had a choice, they make a decision, they take an action, that they start driving their story. If you find that you are throwing things at your character, yes, in real life, things can happen randomly all the time. But in a story, we want to see that this particular character who is afraid of intimacy or is afraid of commitment is going to take a small incremental step here that will eventually lead them to it. But your character doesn't know that. You, as the author, know that. You must make the choice equal to the alternative. So it's not too easy a choice. Now, what this means is, here's a choice. If I don't do something, my son risks being killed. And if I do something, I'll be afraid of going out in the dark. Are those equal? Not really, unless you have an agoraphobia. Is that it? I don't want the one about scared of spiders, but the one that's scared to go out in public. Make them equal. That there's a good reason not to do something as there is to do something. Why? Because that makes the reader starts rooting for this character. And this is why, after the inciting incident, you start being able to filter in some of the backstory of your character. They can talk to someone who knows them from childhood and find out why this choice is not easy. And thank you, John. Agoraphobia. Okay. The choice that is being offered based on that inciting incident must lead to an action, not just a thought or a decision. They must take a specific action that the reader knows this character is acting on this choice, not just still thinking about this choice or pondering this choice. So that action is going to be the small hill they have to climb that's going to bring that character closer to the change that you as the author know they need. So again, we're looking at a choice being given here at the beginning. Can come out of the blue to them, but from this point on, it's a choice based on what decisions and actions they've taken up to a particular point. So choice, decision, and specific action. It can't just be, so they're going to do something. That's too general. We need a specific. So they go to the coffee shop. And the action that we're talking about here is going to occur about the quarter of the way into your story. This is why we talked about word count yesterday, because now you know, okay, if you're doing 60,000 words, midpoint is 30,000, give or take. This first major action that they're going to take should be around 15,000 words. So between the opening and the inciting incident, there's a lot of other stuff going on, but this is what you need to know for the basis of your story. What are they going to face? What choice are they given? And what action do they take? Now, speed bumps that I see with people working with this choice concept is if the choice is too easy, if it's a no-brainer. Okay. Ariana asked, when is the choice presented to the character? Is it at 10%? It is simply the inciting incident near the beginning of your story. It doesn't have to be down to the particular page. They may not even realize that it's part. It could be something in passing, and then they have to revisit it and think, okay, this might be what I have to deal with here. So there's no narrow it down here, but you look at your word count and know. Okay, we have Kathy asks, can the action happen sooner than 25%? If that happens, what happens is you've stretched out the middle of your book. You've made it a longer bit to it. And it means that you have probably jumped the reader from, because you know your character, jumping the reader from, here's the inciting incident. Okay, I'll go, bam, off you're running. You can see this sometimes in movies where somebody is given a choice and they immediately act on it. What that leaves the reader is not knowing why this choice was challenging for them. They just jumped into it, so it must not have been a challenge. So you need a certain amount of page space, word count, in order to get that backstory and understand why the character is hesitating, because that lets the reader get deeper into your character and knowing that this particular character is going to be challenged by this action. So there also possibly need a mentor happening to help them over that. Should I act? Should I not? Claudia wants to know if the choice is an expected choice. Is that too easy? What do you think, Claudia? If it's an expected, makes a no-brainer, there's no downside to it, why would they not choose it? So again, that makes it because you as the author want them to do this versus they as the character facing something they don't want to do. John says, to go or not for coffee. Is that an adequate inciting incident if there are larger stakes down the line? Absolutely. Remember, this is just a small hill, John. No, they don't want to take the time away from their binge TV watching or babysitting somebody or getting the kids dinner every night. So to go for a cup of coffee can be a choice. At this point, it doesn't have to be that big. And as Jade says, it makes the reader want to turn the page. Yeah, so why do you want to rush that too soon or make it too non-event? So thank you for great questions. So if the action is rushed without a clear choice and decision, your character is simply reacting instead of acting. Okay, so this is, tell your 16-year-old, I'm going away. I want all the garbage is emptied before I get back. Will you do that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. That is something that's imposed on them. Now they have a choice to take an action or not to take an action. But if they came home and realized that the mom, the dad haven't come home yet, and they know that they get tired when they come home, maybe they should empty those garbages on their own. But my God, that'll take away from playing on the Xbox. Or do you see? So it raises some questions. A sibling may come in and say, are you trying to kiss up to mom or dad or whatever? They're not even going to notice it. All those kind of things. So the reader knows that, no, this is something special. This is starting to change this 16-year-old. And we want to find out, does he do it? And what's going to be the reaction to it? So you get to get engaged more. If you take an action that does not change anything. Sometimes it's like, oh, I always go here and do this, so that's no biggie. And they do it. And it's like, but then why do it? And then they do the same action again later. So it's got to change something. As Robert says here, the action reveals the character. This is why we know that don't watch what someone says they're going to do. Watch what they're doing. Don't care what they say. Watch what they're doing. And if the choice is a no-brainer, because sometimes it's something they want. The movie G.I. Jane is a good example of that. She wants to take the Navy SEAL course because that is a sure way for her as a woman to get into action. And action, military action in the military at the time that that movie was made, was the only way to really progress up the rungs of the military. So she wanted that opportunity, and she's given that opportunity. But right before she leaves, and she's excited about it, her boyfriend, who's also her commander, which slap his hands, says, you do know that with you out on the other side of the country and then being sent on missions and me doing what I need to do here, we may not be together. Now, that is simply to let the reader know there are some risks, there are some downsides, there are some costs to this action. So make sure that happens. Okay, just a second. I'm trying to get to my. Is the first page considered 250 words? Traditionally, yes. That is considered 250 words, roughly. And that's why we go by word count, though, so that if you're writing for an EPUB, you may not see page count, but you will know word count is going to be about the same. Right, here's your challenge. I'll go through it twice. So I'm trying to slow myself down. There are 3 questions to this challenge. Keep your answers to one sentence. If you noticed in those assignments that I was able to get to yesterday, the longer the answer was, the harder it was to actually find what the belief system was. And again, a belief system, by determining what it is, we're going to see that it really makes it easy for you as the writer to see, okay, what's going to challenge this character at a quarter of the way into the book? What's going to increase the risk for this character halfway through the book? And what is going to create a black moment for them? It's not going to be the same thing for all characters because you know your character now. So, first question, identify an inciting incident. One sentence. Yes, it's hard, but that doesn't mean you get to avoid it. They can take a new job. The inciting incident is offered a new job, or they gives them a choice to agree to meet someone or not, or to join a specific group or accept a dare. There's choices in here for them. Clarify what choice they have based on that inciting incident. They can hesitate, they can drag their feet, or they can try to justify why they shouldn't act, but make sure the choice, even a small one, is not necessarily easy. Think about it in our own lives, how there's something you don't want to do. You know, it might be good for you, but you don't want to do it. Here's examples in a romance. A character can accept a mission that forces them to work closely with a potential love interest, or walk away from the mission and risk their job or their career. They can take a new job, which they need desperately, but that means they must work with an ex-lover. They can return to a childhood home to help a family member for a short time, even if it means the possibility of crossing paths with the other who broke their heart. So there's good reasons to act, and there's reasons not to act. If you're writing a novel with a strong romantic element, the inciting incident leads to a choice based on the external plot goal. Solve the mystery, go on a dangerous mission, find and slay the dragon. Now, the character may not know what they're going to ultimately have to face, but you, as the author, must have a rough idea. Non-romance from the movie Willow. He's asked to leave the village to return a human baby to her people, even if it's dangerous and a possibly deadly journey. He does not know right up here. The inciting incident is the baby shows up and he's told he must return it. But he doesn't realize it means that he's going to war or going to have to fight Mano a Witcho to kill an evil witch. That's way outside he can't jump from where he was at the beginning of the story to that point without incremental changes along the way. Casablanca, which is not a romance, it is romantic elements. And his choice right at the beginning is he can keep 2 stolen letters of transit that can allow 2 people out of Casablanca. As his ex-lover, this is the inciting incident, and her husband, that he didn't know she had, arrive and need to find a way to get to America. So there's a choice here. So if he's caught with the documents, it means instant imprisonment or death for him. So if he doesn't give them the letters of transit and just turns it in, he might get away with that. But if he's caught with them, there's going to be a cost to him. And notice this has nothing to do with his love. The love interest is the inciting incident, but it has nothing to do with the choice he has to make here. In the movie, Brittany runs a marathon. She's a party girl who can continue to gain weight and feel miserable, or find a way to lose the weight by being more active. So her first choice is, all right, do I keep waking up with a hangover and just gaining more weight and start to have health issues? Or do I do that E word, exercise? She doesn't think immediately, I'm going to run the Boston Marathon, or think that she's capable of doing it. And the first thing she does is get up, go outside, and can barely make it around the block. Question 3. What decision and specific action does your character take next? So here's an example. The action: go on the coffee date, or sign up for the dating service, or agree to be the bridesmaid. It can be return to their hometown, or agree to a separation. If you're writing women's fiction, that oftentimes it's going to change their whole world. Non-romance, and they can also work for romance. Join a group training for the New York Marathon. Leave the village in spite of the risk. Take the new job. Agree to talk to the police about what they saw. This is like something you're going to find in a mystery. What action are they going to take? They don't go after a potential killer right from the beginning. Otherwise, they're too stupid to live. They're going to take small incremental steps. Blow off an important meeting, announce they're leaving to live somewhere else. So all of these are potential actions for them to take. All right, so recapping. And this will be posted in the file section. At the top of the page, you'll see media, and then it says files. This will be reposted there. But don't answer the question trailing on that particular thread, because I can't find it. Okay, someone's asking, Anna, so is the answer to number 3, what decision and specific action to be taken, the first twist point? Absolutely. Quarter of the way into the book, what are they going to do there? So you identify the inciting incident. Second part question, clarify what choice they have based on the inciting incident. And third, what decision and specific action does your character take next a quarter of the way into the book? This is not an action such as, well, they went out the door and they're heading to the grocery store, and then they have to drive home, and then they have to fold the laundry. Those are all things that they can be doing where they're thinking about, should they go on that coffee date? But it's not the kind of action we're talking here. So thanks for asking that, Anna, that this is going to happen a quarter of the way into your story. Now, keep to 1 sentence per question, post to Facebook, and you're changing the hashtag. So it's going to be hashtag capital E, capital X, number 2. No periods, no spaces, because that creates a whole different stream. So I have absolutely been amazed at the quality of the feedback given to people so far, where people say, oh, okay, but where is the if then in the first question? So that is extremely helpful. Now, if you're receiving feedback, it doesn't mean you have to take it because they don't know your story. What it does mean is that there's something that's not yet clear about your story. And if it's not clear to all these other readers in the group, that means you got to dig down a little bit and make it clearer. And I think it was Patricia who did an outstanding, she posted the assignment, and then she revisited it, knowing it wasn't quite right. And then she realized she could go tighter on that and did it herself. So Patricia Rickrod, great job. And that shows everyone how you can do this. So if you're telling me I don't think I'm doing it right, all you're doing is going up to your calculus instructor and said, I don't know, I'm just going to throw something at you. So it's okay, but you want to post the best thing you can. So have no doubts that this was, you tried it and this is what you got. Then keep that to yourself, because otherwise you're telling the instructor, here, you just fix it. I'm going to throw something at the wall and you got to fix it. And that doesn't work very well. All right, there's a question. If you're writing dual point of view novel, do you need or should you do this exercise for both characters? Emma asked this. You do if both characters grow and change. If you are writing something that's 50,000 words or 60,000 words or less, you usually just have one character who's doing the changing. So you have to know your own story. Be prepared that if you do it for both, then the reader has to see that both go through this process. Then Patricia came on, I believe. said it's like talking it out loud, but using a keyboard instead. I'm just an idiot. No, you're not an idiot. It is not easy. You're here to learn this. And if everybody understood this, boy, there'd be a lot stronger novels out there. So pat yourself on the back for doing something. This is like on your own mountain is you climbed the hill. You visited the question. You found out it was harder than you thought, but you went back and worked it so that you finally gave something that you could be proud of and I could quickly answer too. So Patricia asked, if you're writing a romantic suspense and the romance doesn't start until later, do you want the first twist part of, second, I got to figure out what this says here. Do you want the first twist part of the romance? No, if you're not writing a romance, no, I don't need the romance part because it's the external storyline and the romance complicates that. Now, saying that, tomorrow, Wednesday evening, 7 or 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock right now.
Okay, 5 o'clock Pacific Coast, West Coast time. So that means it's 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock on the East Coast. And I don't know what it is in Australia or in France or London, but we're going to have the bonus on the difference between romantic element and romance. So it'll be an extra bonus question that and
If they can't make it, there'll be a replay of that too.
if you can't make it, there's also going to be a replay, but it's just a way that we can talk for those who are not writing romance. All right. And if you're questioning your 2 p.m.ish in Australia, does Australia only have one time zone? I was really surprised when I found out that England only had one. What do we look for the bonus? Just like you're finding today. It's going to be posted in the Facebook group, just like we usually do this lecture, and we are going to give it on the Facebook group. Make sure. Okay, so the recorded bonus is going to be exactly where you find the daily lectures. So at that same top of the page, it says media, then you go to videos. Okay, Western Australian is 2 hours behind Sydney. So that's going to be probably, you don't necessarily want to be awake for that then, but it can help some people in different places. All right, so what comes next? If you're writing multiple sentences per answer, it means you haven't dug deep enough. And you can see that on what people are posting. If they're writing a whole lot of information, they're writing the back cover blurb, or they're writing the meat, or they're writing something else. They haven't done the work. 5 p.m. will be 1 a.m. Western Europe time. Okay. So that gives folks in England a little bit of an idea. And thank you very much for the Claudine has given a link in here about figuring out, but you can also Google it. Where are you? And Gloria, how come you left without me? If you wish to do both characters, use 2 different posts. Don't combine into one post. The reason being is my answer starts getting really long trying to do character 1 and then character 2. If you have a question, Okay, live lectures are always going to be, okay, somebody wants to know, to clarify, 6 o'clock West Coast time? No, 5 o'clock West Coast time. I don't want the folks on the East Coast to have to stay up too late. So 5 o'clock, I'll send out a notification. I'm just giving you a heads up here, and I'll post it, pin the time on the top of the homepage in our group. Now, I'm also, you can also do that hashtag QCHAL. So you have a question in the meantime, just post it there, and I try to get into those first. So again, those who are giving feedback are learning. They're the ones who are actually digging into someone else's story, which can sometimes be less personal, but you can see what's missing. And I really, really love it when people gently, kindly say, where is the if then? So there's a reason for that if then. Belief systems are like the underlying, most people don't even know that they're running on them, but it's why you make certain choices and you avoid other choices, because somewhere inside of you, you have a belief system that says you can't do that or you can do this. Honey, you have an invite to Australia to help Sandy. She's offering ice cream for tech jobs. So if I lose him, I know where he went then. Okay, so I want you to have fun with this process, even as it's frustrating, etc. The more you do this, the easier it will be to do it. And again, it is simply to give you a big picture idea of your story. And for the diehard pansters, it still allows you a lot of room to discover, oh, I didn't know this character was going to show up here. But it keeps the story hold together and moving forward. Now, here's some examples from your classmates. I'll do one slide with the example, and then I'll point out in the next slide what stands out to me. So thank you, Mary, for posting. And this is not to put anybody on the spot. I think everyone who's willing to post deserves a Medal of Valor as well as gold stars, for it's a risk. It can feel like scary to do that. So Mikhail fears letting people down. He believes that if he fell in love, he'd be abandoned. Now let's look at the second one. What we're looking at here is, this is what he fears, is letting people down. So what does that, where's the abandonment? Do you see? It's two different issues. So Mary, you're actually saying he fears if he falls in love, then he's going to let people down. But you're also saying if he falls in love, that he's going to be abandoned. And this is, and you're not alone. A lot of people are putting 2 or 3 answers to the second part, and that just muddies the water. The reader needs to understand clearly. So what scares him most? What makes him want to avoid most? Letting people down, or does he fear being abandoned? So the second sentence is actually the if then, but it doesn't match what he fears. And again, not alone in doing this. So there has to be a connection. If the fear of letting people down, then the belief system can be something like, if he falls in love, he fears letting down the love interest at some point. See how those go together. So his fear is what drives his assumption of the effect of falling in love. So it's an easy fix to go a little bit deeper. And I have, why do I have Siri on here? Okay, so Patricia said, when you said about having two issues yesterday, it made me realize I needed to make mine clear. Yep, that's all it is. All right, so now we're going to look at Joan. Joan Coster posted, if Grace accepts the marriage proposal of the man she adores, she will not only lose her hard-won independence, but also forfeit her chance to become a world-renowned painter, but also will bring ruin on her family. Now, this is biographical historical fiction, and it has strong romantic elements. So the actual belief system has to do with, this is a great example of seeing where the love interest is a complication to what she wants. Here's the problem. She has three worst case scenarios. So when the readers, which matters to her most, basically? What is she most afraid of losing or having happen to bring ruin on the family? Or is she most afraid of not being independent if she's married, or that she believes marriage will ruin her chance? Okay. And again, I have to scroll through on a phone all the way to get to the last comments to make sure who I'm answering. So, Joan, I suggest you look at which one of these. So in this case, the love interest is going to complicate what matters to her most. But it's hard to tell here what matters most. Narrow it down to one issue. When push comes to shove, you got to make that clear to the reader. Otherwise, she makes a choice and the reader's trying to think, oh, does that make her more independent, or is that going to make it harder to become a painter? Or is that going to bring ruin on her family? Do you see? We are like baby ducklings. We need it easy. We need one mama duck to lead us. We need one clear, this could happen. This is from Jennifer Brotherhood. Okay, this is the male character. Because Jonathan's father cheated on his mother and family, what's holding him back from being vulnerable and finding a truly intimate relationship with Amelia is the fear of abandonment. Okay, good news here. You got what you need here, Jennifer, just a little tightening. So being vulnerable is different than finding a truly intimate relationship. So right there, you muddied the waters for a reader as to what is it. So does he fear if he's vulnerable, or if he gets a true intimate relationship with Amelia, then he expects abandonment. These, as written, don't jive. All right, so Robert says, so there can be complicating factors, but it's important to identify the most fundamental. Absolutely, Robert. So it's the fear and the consequence. It's the cause and the effect. If I do this, that will cause that. So that's why when you get multiple, either what they associate with the fear, the reader can get lost as to what's driving them. So thank you, Robert, for adding that. This is from Hannah Lore. All right, and If I pronounce your name wrong, just tell me I'm an idiot and I'll keep practicing and find out a way to make sure that I do it. This is what happens when you have a boring name like Mary, is that when you found really, really cool names, you're always stumbling over them thinking, I am envious. I want a cool name like that. Okay, here, the heroine feels honor bound to solve a crime, her own kidnapping, but she fears that if she succeeds, then the truths revealed about her earlier life will cause her true love to reject her. This is the major problem here, honor bound. So I'm assuming this is a historical that rather than a contemporary, but which of these two fears, right? Honor bound threw me because it said historical right off the bat. And there's an assumption that is being made here from you as the author, is that it's going to reveal her earlier life. So the heroine, if the heroine solves her kidnapping, then she fears her past will cause her true love to reject her. Do you see? Tighten it in there, because if she succeeds, well, there's a good chance she doesn't succeed. And if it's not clear to the reader that because you solve a kidnapping, that it's going to reveal secrets from the past. So it's a little bit loosey-goosey yet. There's potential in here. But when you hit something like that word honor bound, that says historical as opposed to contemporary, unless she's in law enforcement. And don't muddy the water. What you want to see Laura, here is to post on a Post-it note on your computer. If she solves the kidnapping, then her earlier life could be revealed, and that's going to cause the true love to reject her. So by reading this, yeah, Jade makes it really simple here. She fears him finding out about her past will cause him to reject her. So I think what you were doing was, it doesn't read like a romance, as like the most important thing is to find out who kidnapped her. And she fears doing that because of the secrets it might reveal about her past. So his present is, or her, depending on the type of story you're writing, is complication to finding out who kidnapped her. That's a mystery or a non-romance. So I can't really determine if this is a romance. Bring the love. Yeah, cause her true love to reject her brings it into a romance. But if what you're focusing on in the story is the external plot line, okay, so it is a mystery. Yay! Okay, then what we're going to do is if she succeeds finding who kidnapped her, then the truth about her past will be revealed. Okay, and then in the story, him in particular is the one that she's afraid of it. So it is a historical. Well, good. So you got that. So we have one more example. So does that make sense, Anna Laura, that she is honor bound to find out who kidnapped her, but she does fear that it's going to, her secrets are causing Yeah, Aaron does a good job of it here too. But if it's not a romance, you may not even need to do that. So depending on how much of a romantic element it is, which is why we're having a bonus thing tomorrow. Okay, this is the last one, Elena. If Parker gives up his need for control and learns to go with the flow, and right there, you got two different things. Then he has to trust Willow won't walk out on him the same way his ex-wife did. This is the stumbling block right here. You're trying to make a negative of, if this happens, then that won't happen. So you've made complications for yourself. So in something like this, if you're using a negative that if they do this, then that person won't do that, the reader has to flip it and trying to figure the non-negative. And already you can see why that could cause problems. So if he trusts Willow, or if he, so what issue is bigger for him? He has got trust issues, he's got control issues, and flexibility issues. So if he trusts Willow, then he fears she will walk out on him the same way his ex-wife did. See, that's much. Okay. Elena, I hope that's you who's posting. No, it's Robert. This is for a non-romance. But do you see how even with what Robert did here, which I don't know for Ilana, if that is your story, do you see how just tightening that makes it so much clearer? So now we know this is the issue that he has with control. And so at the end of the story, he has to learn to go with the flow. And that will show that he trusts her. So his expectation was, Linda says he fears Willow will walk out on him. So that's where we've got consistency there, but it is, Lena says, this is for a romance. I'm still struggling with the entire plot of the story. That's okay. It'll come. Don't worry yet. Worry about getting to know what Parker's issue is, and that will help pull that story together. So it's going to, you'll see it as we get deeper in here, is that we're going to see that by finding out what they fear at the end of the story. So when we get to the black moment, already we know what the black moment is. So I'm going to use Roberts. If Parker retains his need for control, then Willow will walk out on him. So what's going to happen in the black moment? Willow does walk out on him because he refuses to learn how to let go of that control. So he creates his own worst case scenario. So there's the black moment. At the end, you know they're going to get together because it's a romance. At the beginning, you're going to show him with his control issues. And then we work on what happens a quarter of the way through is, do you see? You've got 2/3 of your story pulled together. And that's how this works. We're going down, we're focusing in main issues and moving forward with the story. And then if you find it doesn't work, then you go back and you're only changing basically 4 exercises. You have to go back and you find out at the end, oh God, it's not about his control issue at all. It's about his fear of abandonment. So you can rewrite that instead of rewriting the whole story. So let me tell you, the exercise is going to be posted in the Files tab after this session. It takes a little bit, but it's a YouTube video, so you can go back and pause, etc. At the top, there's a post on the Facebook page that explains how to post as an individual post instead of attaching to somebody else's thread. And so it's written right there where you, and this, I got to thank Robert Harrell for this. Top of the Facebook page, that group that we're in, there's a word up there that said discussion. Click on that. That's going to then create a text box with room that says type something. And then you type your homework response using the appropriate hashtag, exercise, and number. And then you hit return. And that's all you have to do. Because if it's attached to a thread like the end of this lecture or somebody else's comment, I can't always find it. So that's, that's what's posted at the top. So Robert, thank you so much for making that easier. And we're done. I apologize. This did take longer than I expected, but new assignment. I'm going to continue to work on the first assignment because you have to get clear about that in order to move forward. So as if you're following along, you're probably seeing me revisiting people who've already posted, which I will continue to do, but I also will try and reach everybody before I get to the second day homework. And tomorrow, at the end of our lecture tomorrow, we'll also go over examples from the second day homework that I find that might help everybody. So thank you very much, and delighted that you're here and delighted that you're giving feedback to your fellow authors and stepping in and helping one another. That's just admirable. Okay, I'll see you again tomorrow and have fun with the process. Take care.